RECAP Ethiopia has been with you for 10 episodes. It has brought you weekly summaries of major happenings in Ethiopia. We are now at the year's end and also at the end of season 1 of RECAP. So we've brought you a special episode. Please stay with us. እንኳን አደረሳችሁ. Happy Ethiopian New Year. From the outbreak of the novel coronavirus pandemic globally and in Ethiopia, as well as to the several natural, political, social, and economic challenges that Ethiopians endured throughout the year, 2012 was eventful for most Ethiopians in and outside the country. Multiple Ethiopians also received recognitions in several professions and disciplines such as arts, literature, policy, administration, business, and more. The season finale of RECAP Ethiopia will bring you a recap of the past Ethiopian year. RECAP will remember those we lost to the virus, conflicts, and natural disasters, as well as celebrating Ethiopians that received global, regional, and national recognition for their contributions in their respective professions. I'm Wangel Tamene, and this is the special episode of RECAP Ethiopia. The global pandemic that brought with it the social, economic, political, as well as cultural challenges to Ethiopia and Ethiopians arrived in the nation on March 13, 2020, or Megabit 4, 2012. The pandemic changed life as we know it in the second part of the past Ethiopian year. The first case, which was confirmed by the Ministry of Health and the WHO in the 7th month of the Ethiopian year, conducted over 1 million coronavirus tests. Even though the number of tests done represent less than 1% of the country's population compared to the resources of Ethiopia, this is an encouraging number. Testing was specially ramped up during the last months of the Ethiopian calendar, Nahase, or as the rest of the world may know it, as August. So far, the country has recorded 59,648 cases as of Monday, September 7, 2020, according to the Twitter update of the Minister of Health of Ethiopia, Dr. Lydia Elias. A total of 993 Ethiopians have lost their lives to the virus in the past year, a number that was much lower at the end of July. And 21,789 patients have successfully recovered from the virus in Ethiopia. The country is the third most affected nation in the African continent. The country declared a state of emergency in March that was implemented for 5 months and met its end in the beginning of this week. In addition to the human cost of the pandemic, however, it also brought with it a number of ramifications in the country's socio-economic and political spaces. Socially, Ethiopians, who are known for living a very social life, struggled to cope with the new realities of social distancing. With most of the community having to go out for work, masks and other sanitary precautionary measures have played a big role in mitigating the effect of the pandemic. Students of elementary and high schools, as well as those in higher educational institutions, stopped attending schools in Megabit or March. Schools implemented several mechanisms for students to continue to learn from their homes. The government has not yet announced how and when students will return to schools. Nonetheless, the psychological toll of the pandemic on children, young students, and the general public alike is strong. Another important social ramification was the temporary closure of religious institutions, which represented a significant departure from the norm for a strongly religious Ethiopian community. Currently, religious institutions are partially open, serving their respective communities with pandemic precautionary measures being taken, but not consistently or uniformly. The economic toll of the pandemic has also been quite significant, with the Ethiopian Airlines suspending flights, hotels closed or partially operating, exports taking a hit, and companies recording significant losses. Ethiopia's economy is expected to suffer a significant blow as a result of the global pandemic. The statement by Minister of Finance Ahmed Shide in May claiming that at least 15 million Ethiopians could require humanitarian assistance as a result of the pandemic is an attestation to the fact. The pandemic, compounded by social unrest and natural disasters, has affected the country's economy significantly. The political implications of the pandemic are more tangible than the other ramifications discussed earlier. Possibly the most significant effect of the pandemic, the Ethiopian election, was postponed in June. The decision had strong ramifications with members of the opposition who were against the extension of the term of the legislators and members of the executive branch. Others, particularly the TPLF, rejected the decision of the parliament, deciding to hold regional elections instead. The Tigray regional state is set to hold its elections, ignoring explicit warning by the House of Federation over unconstitutionality of such elections 2 days before the Ethiopian New Year. Even though the constitution had its challenges before the pandemic hit, it has definitely been exacerbated due to the novel virus. With observance precautionary measures continuing to fall in Ethiopia, according to institutions such as the Institution for Health Metrics and Evaluation, there is still a lot to be done to mitigate the human and consequential costs of the pandemic in the coming times. However, if measures are not implemented and things continue in the same manner, the IHME estimates that death tolls could rise up over 15,000 by January 1, 2020. The Ethiopian elections, which were scheduled to be held at the end of this year, were postponed following the declaration by the election board that it would not be able to conduct necessary preparatory activities due to the pandemic. The Council of Constitutional Inquiry then took on the matter and suggested to the parliament that the extension of the terms of legislators and the officials in the executive branch of both the federal and regional states would be the most favorable options in the absence of an election. The parliament approved the recommendation by the council and extended the term of the federal and regional legislators and officials. The process of the inquiry council included several consultations with academicians, opposition leaders, and activists. The decision to extend was, however, met with a lot of criticisms from several directions. The TPLF, the most vocal of all critics, decided to hold regional elections independent from the federal government. The election is set to be held in defiance of the federal government on September 8, 2020, a day before the Ethiopian New Year. RECAP covered the topic as follows. Yet another chapter in the constitutional dilemma in Ethiopia, the Tigray regional state will hold its controversial regional elections on Wednesday, September 9, 2020. The election is both a source of deliberation over constitutional law as well as posing one of the greatest challenges to the Ethiopian constitution, which celebrated its 25th year earlier this month on August 21, 2020. The elections are set to take place next week despite lack of recognition from the federal government, the National Election Board, and the House of Federation. Long-awaited answers to the questions such as, can there really be a regional election independent from the federal government? What are the legal and political implications of the elections in Tigray, especially in the context of the fragile Ethiopian federalism structure? What of Tigray's future in the federation? We'll find their answers next week on Wednesday. The House of Federation, the chamber of the parliament tasked with the interpretation and protection of the constitution, released a statement condoning the elections in the Tigray regional state, claiming that the election was not constitutional and raising human rights violation in the Walqait region, which has been at odds with the Tigray region for a while now. Despite warnings of the Tigray regional state being on a collision course with the federal government by many commentators, earlier in July, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, reassured the nation that a military attack by the federal government was out of the question in a meeting he held with opposition leaders. According to the Ethiopian Prime Minister's speech at a meeting between himself and opposition leaders in July, said that even though the federal government does not intend to use force against the regional election, it will definitely take measures if the constitution is threatened by the outcome of the election, either at the onset or when the country reschedules its national elections after the nation controls the pandemic. At this point in time, there is no cause to be alarmed, because as long as the results of the election extend the term of the TPLF, the outcomes are just repeating the decision of the House of Federation to extend the term of seating government's official. But if other political parties win the election, then we will have a problem, because only TPLF can be in power in the Tigray regional state. In the form of the postponed election, the defiant regional elections in the north, and other issues that will be covered later, the Ethiopian constitution has been strongly challenged this year. In this context, the Afrobarometer study released in August suggested that a significant portion of Ethiopians supported constitutional amendments, highlighting the challenging year the controversial Ethiopian constitution is facing. In what was probably the most eventful year since the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the dam's first filling was completed and celebrated in the Ethiopian month Hamle, otherwise known as July. Stagnant negotiations featured new mediators and much more happened. As the date approached for the initial filling of the GERD, the Egyptian government called on the US government, the UN Security Council, the Arab League, and many more mediators to lock down an agreement before the dam started to be filled in July or Hamle. The US hosted the three negotiating riparian countries in February. Without any concrete outcomes from the negotiations, Egypt went to the UNSC in June of 2020 before the African Union stepped in following criticisms by several commentators, including the Congressional Black Caucus, highlighting the relevance of the finding African solutions for African problems. Ethiopia pushed on with the construction of its dam despite an impasse with Sudan and Egypt, with Ethiopians celebrating the initial filling of the GERD in public displays of pride and accomplishment on August 2, 2020, as well as online support and celebration with hashtags like It's My Dam. The first filling of the dam was announced on July 21, 2020, with high rainfall season highly contributing to the filling of the dam. Here are some snippets from previous episodes of RECAP Ethiopia covering the negotiation, aid cuts, as well as the celebration by Ethiopians of the filling of the dam. The African Union-led talks among the three key Nile Basin countries are trying to resolve a years-long dispute over Ethiopia's construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile. Ethiopians celebrated the progress in the construction of the country's dam on the Nile River last Sunday, in a joyful demonstration that was summoned by posts on social media and authorized by the government. Tens of thousands of residents flooded the streets of Addis on Sunday afternoon, waving Ethiopian flag and holding up posters supporting the mega dam project. People in cars honked their horns, others whistled, played loud music, and danced in public spaces to mark the occasion. Similar events were held in other cities in Ethiopia as well. Sunday's celebration was made under the theme One Voice for Our Dam, and came after Ethiopian officials announced on July 22 that the first stage of filling the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam reservoir was achieved as planned. The country is still far from completing the dam. It is expected that it will take several more years until the dam is fully operational. Persisting financial constraints, negotiations with Egypt and Sudan, and international pressure are amongst the assignments of Dr. Abiy's administration in the coming Ethiopian New Year. On Hidar 10, 2012 or November 20, 2019, the lengthy question by the Sidama people was answered when the members of the ethnic group voted to be an independent state from the southern nation nationalities and peoples region. The struggle by the Sidama people had previously resulted in riots and caused many to lose their lives, bodily parts, and property. Over 2 million people voted for the formation of a Sidama state, and on November 23, 2020, making the Sidama regional state the 10th regional state in the crumbling Ethiopian federal system. The BBC reported in 2018 that there were a number of other questions of statehood which emanated from the same region in the south of the country. With controversies surrounding still not finding answers, the Walaita people also asked to become a state this year. Violence recently erupted over the same question of statehood, which according to many has not been answered properly by the federal government. RECAP, in its 7th episode, covered the Walaita statehood question and the riots that claimed the lives of at least 21 people. Like many ethnic groups, the Walaita, currently part of the Southern Nation nationalities and peoples regional states, want their own state, which would give them greater regional autonomy. Due to several political and historical contexts in Ethiopia, ethnic identity and autonomy have taken center stage in the country's political discourse, its highest governing body of law, and the day-to-day conversations of Ethiopians across the large East African nation. Like other ethnic groups in Ethiopia, the Walaita also have questions of statehood in an effort to guarantee cultural representation as well as regional autonomy within the federalism system of administration in the Ethiopian government. The Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front dissolved in the Ethiopian year 2012 as the ruling party evolved to form the Bilsgena Party, otherwise known as the Prosperity Party, in the absence of the strongest member of the EPRDF's coalition, the TPLF. The TPLF refused to join the Prosperity Party, which meant that the newest party would go forward without the ruling party in the Tigray regional state. The EPRDF's postponed plan to form one party was catalyzed by Abiy's administration this year. The newest party was formed on Hidar 21, 2012 or December 1, 2019. The party comprises of the Amhara Democratic Party or ADP, the Afar National Democratic Party or ANDP, the Argoba People's Democratic Organization APDO, the Benishangul Gumuz People's Democratic Unity Front BSPDU, the Ethiopia Somali People Democratic Party ESPDP, the Gambella People's Democratic Movement GPDM, the Harari National League HNL, the Oromo Democratic Party ODP, the Southern Ethiopian People's Democratic Movement SEPDM, the formation of the party was opposed by one particular prominent politician in the Oromo community. Former Minister of Defense Lamma Magarsa expressed concern that the formation of the party before the questions of the Oromo people were answered would risk the results acquired during the Qeerroo movement. Following this, Lamma slowly disappeared into the background of the party he had dominated in 2018. Lamma was banned from the executive committee of the Oromia Prosperity Party and was removed from his ministerial position in August 2020. RECAP covered this event in its 7th episode as follows. This week kicked off with a significant development in the leadership of Ethiopia's ruling party. The Prosperity Party announced on Sunday, August 9, 2020, that it has passed a decision to ban senior members of the Oromo Prosperity Party and Minister of Defense, Lamma Magarsa, from the executive committee of the Oromia region branch of the party. Lamma Magarsa, who was one of the highest-ranking members of the party from the Oromia region, was banned from the party alongside Zeybe Hassan and Milkeessa Miidhagaa in a meeting held between the leadership of the party regarding current affairs in the country and other important issues. Prosperity Party broke the news through its Facebook account on Sunday evening. Lamma Magarsa, who is the current Minister of Defense, was instrumental in the introduction of the current administration following the unrest that led to the resignation of the former Prime Minister of the country, Haile Mariam Desalegn. Lamma, who was a key member of the OPDO for most of his career, strongly opposed the formation of the Prosperity Party, claiming that the Oromo question has not been addressed yet. Reports at the time suggested that Lamma had refused to join the party initially before deciding to join the party at a later stage. December of this year weighed heavily on our hearts. Several higher education institutions were being disrupted due to clashes, and this brought unrest among students and their parents. Fearing for their safety, students returned to their respective towns and parents, but some were not lucky enough to reach home. 18 students were kidnapped on their way. Although the parents got news of their children's misfortune on December 4, it took several weeks for the issue to come to light. Multiple peaceful protests were held in light of this, and the government finally decided to look into this. After months of searching, the children have still not been found. The search is still going on, with multiple suspects being questioned and charged with abduction and terrorism. But parents of these children are still asking the government for answers. Some, just wanting peace of mind, asked if they are still alive, so they may grieve and move on. We here at RECAP Ethiopia pray for the safety of the children and sincerely hope they return to their parents soon. On June 29, 2020, the killing of Hachalu Hundessa around the Galan condominium area was reported. The death of the pop star was met with anger from the Oromo community. Addis Ababa suffered millions in property damages as angry mobs and violent factions amongst them stormed the capital, destroying homes, businesses, vehicles, and other public and private properties. Other cities with the Oromia region witnessed much harsher riots that featured ethnically motivated attacks on the Gurage and the Amhara ethnic groups living in cities such as the Shashamene and Adama. During alleged attempts to apprehend the singer's corpse from the family members, more members of the Hachalu family were killed, increasing the human cost of the riots. RECAP dedicated an episode to the singer's death and the riots that ensued following his killing. There was a shadow in the air, looming over Ethiopia in the past week. It came in the form of sticks and stones, broken windows, burned cars, loss of lives, and unfortunate confrontations. Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, and towns on the Oromia regional state were under siege. Early on Tuesday morning, Addis woke up to watch young people from the surrounding parts of the city entering it, chanting and wielding sticks. Cars were burned, shops looted, buildings were destroyed by stone-wielding protesters. Bombs were set off and lives were lost. The Ethiopian year 2012 also saw the memorial of government officials assassinated at the end of the previous year. Here's what RECAP had to say about that. The Ethiopian year 2012 also saw the memorial of government officials assassinated at the end of the previous year. Here's what RECAP had to say about that. All remember last year's alleged coup attempt that took the lives of Amhara Region Chief Administrator Ambacho Mekonnen, along with his security advisor Ezazwasi, as well as General Saara Mekonnen, the Chief of Staff of Ethiopian National Defense Force, along with his retired colleague Major General Gazai Aberra. Army Chief General Saara and Major General Gazai were both allegedly shot and killed by the bodyguard of the former at General Saara's residence in Addis Ababa on Saturday, June 22, 2019.
Earlier on the same day, Ambacho Mokonnen, president of Amhara Regional State, and Izaz Wasi, the regional administration's security advisor, were both shot during a security meeting at the office of the president in Bahar Dar, the capital of the regional state.
Ethiopia arrested over 5,000 people following the riots that ensued after the killing of Hachalu Hundessa. While most were participants of the riots on the ground, some of them were high-profile politicians leading key opposition parties and media institutions in Ethiopia. Episode 3 of RECAP Ethiopia covered justice. Granted, the case has evolved since then, but to understand the gist of the charges, let's have a look at some portions of that episode. We start with the prominent Oromo figure Jawar Mohammed. A leading member of the Oromo Federalist Congress, OFC, and owner of Oromia Media Network, OMN, Jawar Mohammed was arrested on July 2, 2020, following the events that transpired after the death of Hachalu Hundessa. The alleged charges against Jawar Mohammed are mistreatment of the corpse of Hachalu Hundessa and incitement of violence in different parts of Addis Ababa and other cities in the Oromia region. The first appearance of the activist turned political Jawar Mohammed was on July 17, 2020. The Federal First Instance Court, Arada Bench, considered the cases of OFC leader Jawar Mohammed along with Bekkele Garba and other 21 individuals on the said date. The Arada Bench of the Federal First Instance Court heard the results of the investigation of the Federal Police. The Federal Police noted to the court that it had located eyewitnesses, testimonies, and documents attesting to Jawar Mohammed's involvement in the above identified criminal charges. Different communication equipment and weapons allegedly discovered in the residence of the defendant were part of the list of evidence the police have claimed to have collected. Police also claimed that messages transmitted via the OMN TV station has incited violence that has allegedly resulted in the destruction of property estimated over 200 million birr in Addis Ababa alone. Another case that was highlighted this year was the arrest of Kenyan journalist Yasin Juma that sparked online campaigns under the hashtag #FreeYasinJuma due to his allegedly unjust detention compounded by the journalist testing positive for the coronavirus while in detention. Many stakeholders, including the Kenyan government, several international non-governmental organizations, and online commentators criticized the Ethiopian government for holding Yasin Juma despite his acquittal weeks before the release. Yasin was released on August 26, 2020, as he recovered from the COVID-19. The capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, also spent an eventful year under the leadership of Takkala Uma and the newly appointed 32nd mayor of Addis Ababa, Zeybe. The first is the inauguration of Chagatapu that set out to solve the bread supply and price problems observed in the city. Midrock's Chagatapu is now one common feature of all neighborhoods in Addis. The initiative transformed old Ambessa buses to form bread shops in different parts of the city. It was also praised for creating job opportunities to the inhabitants of the city. Chagatapu also gave bread to the city's inhabitants in remembrance of Agmi 2, 2012, the Day of Unity. The celebration of the Day of Unity was debuted at the end of the Ethiopian year 2011 by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, alongside days of forgiveness, hope, praise, and a date of ambassadorship. Takkala Uma also introduced the initiative that closed and fed public school students in the capital of the city. This initiative benefited thousands of students in the capital, earning the former mayor praise at that time. However, his legacy has been shaken in past weeks, following a report by the Ethiopian Citizens Party for Social Justice, EZEMA, about allegations regarding land grab and illegal allocation of condominium housing. Takkala Uma and the Addis Ababa City Administration are coming under scrutiny from the politicians and the public alike. The most recent episode of RECAP Ethiopia had this to say about the report and the response from Takkala Uma. The report has been met with responses from key government officials concerned with the allegations as well as the general public. Takkala Uma, the 39-year-old former deputy mayor of Addis Ababa and current minister for Mines, Petroleum and Natural Gas of Ethiopia, responded to the allegations, strongly claiming that there was no illegal land grab or allocation of condominiums during his tenure as the head of the controversial city. Takkala denied any allegations against him or his administration through a Facebook message this past week. In the message written in Amharic, Takkala said, leaving 20,000 condominiums to the over 67,000 families that had lost their land to unjust expropriation measures and found themselves working as daily laborers and night guards on land that was once their own is not unjust. Maybe the only unjust thing would be not giving all 67,000 families condominiums. Takkala also claimed in his message that all condominium and land allocation efforts were done in accordance with the law. He also said that there was nothing without the public's knowledge. ይህ ስራችን በተደጋጋሚ በይፋ ስንናገር እንደነበረው የምናፍርበት ሳይሆን የምንኮራበት ነው። በግፍ የተገፋን በግፍ ከመሬቱ የተፈናቀለን አርሶ አደር መካስ ያኮራናል። said Takkala, which translates to give the message that the administration is proud of the measures taken to properly compensate farmers expropriated unjustly. Eskinder Naga's Balderas movement, which later turned into a political party called the Balderas for Genuine Democracy, raised these concerns for land grabbing and allocation of condominiums prior to the release of the Zeybe report. Eskinder's party was formed in the Ethiopian year with the intention of representing interests of the Addis Ababa people and fighting the alleged social engineering being done by the Addis Ababa city administration. Eskinder was arrested in relation to the unrest that ensued following the assassination of Hachalu Hundessa at the end of June. The Ethiopian year 2012 also introduced us to new faces in Ethiopian politics. The Dr. Abiy Ahmed administration, which is commended by many for valuing technocrats, appointed youthful faces such as the newest investment commissioner, Lydia Elias, the youngest minister in Ethiopian history, Minister of Women and Youth Affairs, Filsan Abdullahi, the first female mayor of Addis Ababa, Addis. Her replacement at the Attorney General's office, Dr. Gideon Stephanus, are amongst the new faces that appeared in Ethiopian politics throughout the Ethiopian year 2012. RECAP Ethiopia, in its episode that covered the recent reshuffling of Abiy's cabinet, had this to say. Let's have a look. On Thursday, August 18, 2020, news broke that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had appointed 10 government officials to different posts. Household names like Addis and Takkala Uma were reassigned to different positions. New faces like Dr. Gideon Timotheos were introduced to ministerial posts as well. While each appointed brings with it its own unique political implications, RECAP Ethiopia has dedicated this segment to three major figures in the reshuffling of Abiy's cabinet. We will talk about the former Attorney General and newest Deputy Mayor of Addis Ababa, Addis, and the two officials that preceded and replaced her, former Deputy Mayor Takkala Uma and the new Attorney General of the nation, Dr. Gideon Timotheos. The Ethiopian year that is coming to an end was truly challenging to most Ethiopians for all the reasons we saw earlier in this episode and many more. However, Ethiopians also received recognitions from several national, regional, and international initiatives. From Begoso to the Nobel Prize and the White House, the list of recognition given to Ethiopians is long. In the interest of time, we will discuss few. Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed received several recognitions from several institutions this year. Dr. Abiy received the coveted Nobel Peace Prize Award in Tikmt or October of this Ethiopian year, awarded to people who have done the most of or the best work mainly in bringing peace to the respective community. Abiy Ahmed was awarded for starting peace talks with Eritrea and ending the long stalemate that had been keeping the border in between closed for more than 20 years, putting him among the likes of Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and Barack Obama. The award was criticized by many, especially after the assassination of Hachalu and the arrest of several political leaders, for legitimizing an oppressive government with comparisons to Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi of Myanmar. Letters in support of the Prime Minister's Peace Prize from the Ethiopian Worldwide Ethiopian Civic Association Network and against it from the Oromo Lawyers Association were sent to the Nobel Prize community, capturing the controversy surrounding the Prime Minister's recognition by the committee. The Prime Minister was also included in the list of 100 most reputable Africans and given the highest continental recognition in the field of athletics by the Association of National Olympic Committees of Africa in the ending Ethiopian year. Other recognitions to Ethiopians were also given this year. Here's a summary of some recap brought to you in previous episodes. We have reached the segment where we here at RECAP Ethiopia take the time to appreciate and bring to light the Ethiopian men and women that have received awards and recognition this past week. This week, while one Ethiopian received the world's finest dissertation award, two more have been recognized for their hard work and effort. The first person we will be talking about is Lydia Elias, an Ethiopian computer scientist and assistant computer science professor at University of California, Berkeley. Born and raised in Addis Ababa, Lydia won a merit-based scholarship to attend the International Community School of Addis Ababa when in the 8th grade. Finishing her high school education, she went on to earn her bachelor's degree in mathematics and her master's in applied mathematics at Harvard University. Lydia Elias received the Best Dissertation Award, an award that recognizes papers presented to the Special Interest Group on Knowledge Discovery and Data Mining Conference, which is a conference held annually. The prestigious award in 2014 received over 2,600 papers from over 14 countries, of which 151 papers were selected to be presented, which means it has an acceptance rate of 14.6%. As the winner of the SIG-KDD Doctoral Dissertation Award, Redate will be recognized at a conference, received a plaque, a check for $2,500, and free registration to attend the SIG-KDD conference. Dr. Yohannes Haile Selassie, the paleoanthropologist, began his journey in Addis Ababa University and earned his bachelor's in history in the summer of 1982. Continuing his education abroad, Dr. Yohannes completed his master's education in anthropology at the University of California, Berkeley, where he also earned his PhD in integrative biology under his doctoral advisor, Tim White. Tim White is best known for leading the team that discovered RD in Ethiopia, the 4.4 million-year-old likely human ancestor. In December of last year, Dr. Yohannes was named one of Nature's journal's 10 people who mattered in science in 2019 for discovering a 3.8 million-year-old fossil that belonged to the oldest and most elusive known human relative. And now the Ethiopian paleoanthropologist has been selected as a guest speaker in the JAR lecture series that is organized by the Journal of Anthropological Research and sponsored by University of New Mexico. Dr. Yohannes told the University of New Mexico newsroom how happy he is and went on listing the brilliant minds such as Dr. Donald Johansson and Dr. Loring Brace that have spoken on this platform in previous years and said how honored he was to be invited to such a prestigious platform. The third and last person we will be mentioning today is the 24-year-old Ethiopian aerospace engineer that has been listed in the annual African Space Industry Top 10 Under 30 list. Lydia Elias completed her Bachelor's of Engineering in Aeronautical Engineering at Nanjing University, Aeronautics and Astronautics. After graduation, she was a researcher at the Space Engineering Department of the Ethiopian Space Science and Technology Institute. Completing 2 satellite training programs in China and Russia, she is currently pursuing an online MBA with the University of Wales, UK. She recently received a certification in drone technology from the first cohort of African Drone and Data Academy, making her the first Ethiopian woman to receive this achievement. Space in Africa started the Top 10 Under 30 series to spotlight the profiles of the top 10 innovators, engineers, researchers, writers, and contributors to the African space industry. And all her achievements will be featured in current projects which will take place in Malawi in collaboration with UNICEF, GIZ, Wingcopter, and DCA will be featured. Lydia Elias is working as a technical manager in partnership with a German company to build the first Air UTM, or Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Traffic Management, which has been offered a contract from the European Space Agency. That's it for Season 1 of RECAP Ethiopia. Thank you for being with us this past year. RECAP Ethiopia will be back with Season 2, so make sure you like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel. I'll see you on Season 2.